we are back. We're getting ready to shoot. So this one's going to be called Shooting 101. So this is just, again, we're going over just the basics of everything. So rule number one to shooting and to hunting.
At no one.
Safety, 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 safety. I don't mean the safety on the weapon. That is part of it, but just all around safety and awareness. So there's weapon safety rules. This is the Marine Corps coming out. So first one, there's 5 of them. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Right? Doesn't matter if you're inside, if you unloaded it or not, doesn't matter. Never point it at something. Like, always treat it like it's loaded. Never point a weapon at something you don't intend to shoot. So a house, a car, somebody, like anything like that, never point at something that you don't want to die. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So we call it trigger control. And that finger should be straight until click the safety, then your finger can go on the trigger. Till then, that finger stays straight, right along the edge. Keep your weapon on safe until you're ready to fire. So you don't have to be walking around like, oh, it'll save me time. If I see a deer, I can pull up and shoot it. None of that. Always have your weapon on safe until deer, you're up, weapon comes off safe, finger goes on the trigger, pull. And then last but not least is know your target and what lies beyond. So always thinking the fact of you're going to shoot through your target or you're going to miss your target. You've got to know what, where you're going to do. You can see, I mean, right here we shoot. We're not sitting on top of a hill where you're shooting and you can go through and your bullets can keep going or anything like that. Right here, we're going to drive it into the ground right here, and behind it, there's actually a mound behind the headboard. So that round's not going anywhere. Same thing in the woods. It's I mean, public land can be a little more difficult because you don't know where everybody's at. People can be sitting anywhere, but if you see orange for some situation, something random, looking on Onyx is a big one to know where your houses are, to make sure you're not shooting. Let's say there's only 50 acres or 50 yards of woods or something like that, and then there's a house, but there's corn so you can't see. Well, your round's going right through that corn. So just knowing that, knowing which direction you shoot and stuff like that. Safety, safety, safety. So we will have this tripod with us hunting. That being said, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use it, because we have had situations. We actually killed one in the youth hunt. The second year I did this would have been 2001. We killed one to where we were set up for the deer, to be right here in front of us. Everything was laid out, rest was all up, everything was going, everything was good. Deer circled and came down to our right. Kid had to take it out, turn, bring up his knees, and he had to turn his whole body, bring his knees up, rest on his knees, and pull the trigger. So we'll do that today too. We'll take that off. We'll sit down, we'll shoot using our knees. We'll lay down on the prone and hold it. Just there's some different ways. Again, like if you're walking through the woods and a buck steps out, you got to be able to. I think it's a good part of hunting to know, like, if a kid's ready, right? Because if you have to shoot with your weapon in a vise, I'm not quite sure you're ready to be hunting and shoot. So you should be able to lean against the tree or sit down and use your knees or lay in the prone or something like that. Be able to find a rest, find a down tree that you can rest on or something. So yeah, we'll do a couple of those little things today. Nothing major, but just so and can be comfortable. And then trigger control, slow and steady squeeze on that trigger, super slow. Keep applying pressure. Even if your crosshairs come off a little bit, you can keep applying pressure. If you can't hold dead still on what you're trying to hit, so if you can't hold your crosshairs dead still on that bullseye and it's moving around on it or just off it, that's fine. Slow and steady squeeze and let that gun scare you when it goes off. You shouldn't know when it's going to go off. It should surprise you, because if you start jerking, so if you shoot the whole group and that whole group goes to the right, you're probably jumping and you're pulling your trigger, and when you pull that trigger, you pull the whole gun. It's so minimal, but it happens simultaneous of it going off, and it moves that round way more than what you think it does. So slow and steady. You want that trigger to lay, if that's your trigger, you want it to lay right in front of that first joint so you can pull straight back. What else is there? Trigger control. Oh, breathing. So, breathing, you have what's called your natural respiratory pause. So, that's going to be breathe in, big breath, breathe out, all the air. You're the most relaxed you will be at that point. So, we're getting ready, deer comes out, whatever. Take 2 or 3 great big breaths, try to calm yourself down. You might be shaking, you might be nervous, perfectly fine. It's actually encouraged. But yeah, a couple big deep breaths. Slow and steady squeeze. Let it surprise you. Ready? All right. Shoot 4 of them, and then we'll walk down there and look.
That's 4.
Good? All right. So open it up. Yep. Rack it up and back so it's open. We can see there's no round in the chamber. It's not going to go off because that's open. We're going to walk down there and look. Solid group. All right, so we changed up one thing. Shot a great group, but now we have switched over to aim small, miss small. We'll zoom in just a little bit for you. You'll start to notice now that your breath matters. You'll see a little bit of shake in the gun. How's that group?
A lot tighter.
Much tighter. You know, you look at, those are the same size circles, right? So from aiming at the entire dot to, well, I don't think you can see it, but there's a dot right there on the edge of that.
Ooh,
that
right.
Yeah,
Right
that you were aiming at. First shot took it out. So just the difference in aiming at a smaller target. All right, so we are now jumping over to the hunting rifle. This is a Savage 110 and chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. We've shot a handful of deer with this gun, and it's been awesome. So, shooting at about 100 yards. So we're gonna let them fly and see what happens. All right, so shooting today. How do you feel that went?
Great.
Good. It went very good. You shot very well. Do you have any questions about that?
No questions. Just
Concerns? Complaints? Nothing?
no complaints.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, you shot really well. It was amazing what happened when we took that, you know, aiming at the regular 1-inch size circle bullseye, and then you put a pin in the middle of that and you aim at that, and that just took your group down. So you kind of have to have that same thought process when you're shooting at a deer, right? You don't want to aim at a shoulder this big, because if you hit an inch high on that, you're at the back, or if you hit an inch low, you're shooting under the deer. So you kind of have that same process. So we're going to go over real quick is the anatomy. I'll throw these pictures right up on the screen. But yeah, so we're going to go over, there's a couple diagrams of, you know, lung, heart, liver, what you're looking for, what you want to hit, what you don't want to hit, what will be a lethal shot and what won't be. So, and we'll go over quartering shots too and where to aim. So let's jump around here. All right, so you can see this leg comes up, and then there's a little bit of crease that would be right here in that shoulder. You don't want to be too low, because you can shoot below the heart. If you look at this diagram, that heart is not on the bottom of the deer. There's ribs below it. There's flesh. So you have, you know, an inch and a half probably of nothing vital underneath that heart. And then you have your lungs, and then you have your liver. So what's going to be the most devastating, the most lethal? Heart and lungs, right off the bat. And then your liver will kill them pretty fast as well. A gut shot, so you hit back in the stomach and the intestines, that deer will die, but it will be extremely difficult to find them. So they don't bleed very well, and they can go a long ways, and they'll lay down, they'll get up, they'll keep moving, they'll lay down again, until eventually they just give in and die. So quartering two, quartering at you, my go-to aim point is the opposite side shoulder behind it. Okay, so you don't want to aim behind this shoulder anymore because you're barely going to catch that one long. So if you aim this opposite side shoulder, right, he's quartering to you behind opposite side shoulder, you're going right through both lungs and the heart. Again, you don't want to be too high in here, but in the bottom third. Back out of that again, and now you go quartering away, it's going to be the opposite. Now you're going to aim the front of the opposite side shoulder. Does that make sense? Yeah, because again, you aim behind your opposite side shoulder, you're in that back hip on this one, but like if it was not quite as dramatic and you aim behind the opposite side shoulder, you're going to be way too far back, you're going to be into the stomach. So I guess now you want to aim in front of that opposite side shoulder, and that will drive you right through heart and both lungs.
D3 or C3, right around there.
You can go there. I would go back a little bit behind it. You can kind of see that crease in your shoulder. Yep, I would come in just a little bit behind it. If you hit right there, you're going to kill that deer. But yes, I would go back to 4.
C4.
C4. Like I said, you don't want to be too low down in here. You don't want to be halfway through the body, but just below that halfway mark.
E7, E6,
Yep.
on there.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. I hope he looks like that too. For sure, that'd be all right. I wouldn't complain about that. Yeah, so fantastic. That's exactly right. And then just remember, quartering to you behind the opposite side shoulder, quartering away in front of the opposite side shoulder. Yeah. Any questions on any of that?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions on anything from today?
No questions.
No questions?